because like the joke answer is, yeah, that's Williams for Sona.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs, the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host of the Toast, RyeToast, here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, like we always do, but I should address the elephant in the room. If you missed Friday's stream, I did a community stream where I was grading everybody's theories as the lore professor, and I really liked the vibe. And I've been thinking for a while, if you've been seeing the community posts, for a while I've been talking about maybe doing like lore deep dives on the third channel or making a new channel for like all other games and kind of play this like lore professor character. And it's something that I actually really like. So I went and got the fit for it. This is one of like 4 outfits that I bought. They're off camera, but I didn't buy 4 full outfits. I did the thing where like you buy the vest, the shirt, a sweater, and a turtleneck. So and then like 2 pants. So if you combine them, that's like 6 outfits. And I kind of wanted to try it out on the podcast just to, again, this isn't like, I wouldn't change the main channel. I'm too afraid to, frankly. But this is a good way, the podcast is a good space for me to test stuff out, and I want to know how I feel recording at length in this. And also, hey, I'm gonna be honest, I keep looking over here, I look fucking good in this. I'm just being super real, so part of it is I like how I look in it. But yeah, I'm not changing anything on the main channel. This is really just, I wanted to see if I could, like, comfortably record at length in a vest, tie, and a loose-fitted dress shirt. So we'll see, because this is part of it. Like, I've got a nice black turtleneck with brown pants, a pea coat, which looks great, but not when I'm sitting down. So it's a whole thing. But we're here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. I want to try to keep these little tangents brief. I accidentally talked about not FNAF for like 10 minutes last week. Jesus, sorry. I specifically wanted to talk about how stacked the summer is going to be for Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, this summer is going to be crazy. No, you know what? Maybe crazier than FNAF week was last year. Because the FNAF anniversary week was crazy. Don't get me wrong. Five Nights at Freddy's demo. Into the Pit, which might be one of my favorite FNAF games. Less replayable now that time has passed, but still an amazing game. We got the free interactive novel VIP that was like a shorter teaser to explain what those are. We got a lot of really cool behind the scenes stuff for the FNAF movie. We got the Dawko interview. Like, FNAF week was super hype, and I'm not going to forget it for a long time. This summer might be better, though. Right? Because... Oh, and not to mention the fan games. I don't want to diss the fanverse. We got My Pop Goes' Steam release and Joy of Creation demo, which were both huge. This summer, specifically, 2 of them we know for a fact are happening in June, and then one of them I'm guessing might happen in the summer. But this summer is stacked for Five Nights at Freddy's. I keep getting distracted because now I'm realizing that shadow is in my face, and that's really annoying because I don't have a better solution because I have a bad lighting setup. So we're just gonna go out right in the gate. First thing that we know is coming out this summer, Secret of the Mimic, Friday the 13th in June. June 13th. We are less than 2 months away from the newest full Five Nights at Freddy's game. I am so excited for it, right? I wanted to bring it up because, one, it's just been a while since we've talked about it, and like it still looks really solid. The trailer looks really good. The character designs are awesome. The gameplay looks fun and engaging. It looks different than anything we've had. It looks like what Security Breach wanted to be. You know, I'm super excited. I do want to say, I don't know if I brought it up back when it was getting announced. I keep seeing more and more people being like, this isn't Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a Poppy Playtime clone. What the hell are you talking about? Like, be so for real. Brother, every indie horror game is walking around doing puzzles and getting chased. You're not a genius for pointing out that they all have similar gameplay. Every indie horror game is kind of like that. And I swear to you, everyone who accuses a new indie horror of being a clone of a different one, they're just saying their first or favorite indie horror. Right? Like, Poppy Playtime comes out. This is like a FNAF clone. Then this comes out, that's like a Poppy Playtime clone. Or when Ruin came out, this is like a Bendy clone. Like, people just accuse the new thing of being a clone of the thing they like. It's not that deep. It's just a very similar genre. And also, I like Poppy Playtime. This doesn't look anything like Poppy Playtime, besides the fact that you solve puzzles and get chased. Congratulations. That's the whole genre. But talking about Secret of the Mimic itself, Steel Wool. It's too late, I know. Like, the game's pretty much done at this point. I am on my knees, begging you. Please fill this game with cryptic shit. Just fucking fill this game with cryptic shit. Please. 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 I need it to make theories about. Like, Help Wanted 2 was too straightforward, I believe it or not. I think Help Wanted 2, it was really solid. One of my favorite games to play in FNAF. Pretty easy to solve. Not a lot of conversations came from Help Wanted 2. And I hope that Secret of the Mimic will be different, because if not, we're in trouble. I was talking to a friend and kind of complaining about FNAF. Just in the sense that, like, I think we nailed down in a back and forth, like, what kind of the problem, quote unquote, is with modern FNAF. That in the original era of the games, we knew, like, oh, missing child incident. This is an inciting incident. Everything we're solving is to figure out why the missing child incident happened. That made sense. And then, like, everything had, like, a why to it. We knew why we were theorizing. We knew what we were looking for. And we could center it around that. And, like, William Afton. And, like, okay, this is what's happening. And we don't really have that yet for modern FNAF. Like, they kind of forgot that step, where we keep solving these things and making these connections, and we're like, oh, okay, so, like, the Mimic was here, and the Mimic is here, Gregory is likely under Glitch Trap, but we haven't figured out why this matters yet, right? Like, we don't have our missing child incident to solve around. Unless that's supposed to be the 9 missing people for security breach, but that wasn't really, like, emphasized yet. It just feels like a footnote, whereas, like, the missing child incident was front and center for FNAF 1 and 2. So, hopefully we get that. I'd love an inciting incident, you know, something to center all of our theories around, because that would really help. Or, you know, just a lot more cryptic stuff to talk about, man. Speaking of lore for Secret of the Mimic, I'm kind of hopeful that the Funtimes get referenced in some way. Not like, oh, hey, the Funtimes exist in 1979. That'd be crazy. But some, like, you know, a blueprint that shows William was working on it. And part of that is that this week's theory kind of has to do with, I really like this week's theory, what it says about Elizabeth, but if it's true, then Elizabeth would have to die before the crying child, which would mean that the Funtimes were made just because, which feels kind of stinky, and I don't like that. So any evidence to give us that would be nice. It means I can stick with this theory that I really like, but, you know. But yeah, Secret of the Mimic looks goated. It looks really, really good, and I cannot wait to play it. June is going to kill me. I do need to point that out. June will kill me, because Switch 2 comes out on the 5th, which I will be covering extensively on the second channel. And Secret of the Mimic comes out on the 13th, which I'll be covering extensively on the main channel. So, oops, June is going to be busy, baby. Speaking of things coming out in June, though, the Dead by Daylight chapter for Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, I know a lot of you are less interested in this, but hear me out, okay? First of all, I love Dead by Daylight. I think it's a really fun game. But in case you don't know a lot about Dead by Daylight, the typical way that content is released in a big chapter like this is a killer and a survivor, which is a big opportunity here. Now, is it most likely that we're getting the movie version? I think so, right? I think it is most likely we're getting the movie Yellow Rabbit and movie Josh Hutcherson, maybe if we're lucky, also Elizabeth Lau, Vanessa. I think that is the most likely, because there are established characters that will tie in with the movie, and they have, like, established a look to them. They are recognizable. We know who these people are. But you know who's more recognizable than all three of them? FNAF 3 Springtrap, baby. And if we get FNAF 3 Springtrap as a killer, then the likelihood of our survivor being Michael Afton or Henry Emily is all but guaranteed. Now I hear you, Rye, this is for Dead by Daylight. Why would this matter at all for Five Nights at Freddy's? Official models. Think about it. We have the potential, 11 years, coming in on 11 years into this franchise, to get an officially rendered 3D model of Michael Afton or Henry Emily. Characters who, if we're going off of the games, we only have this. Wait, why am I acting like this is a full video? This is a podcast. You know, Michael Afton's sprite from FNAF Sister Location, where he's just going da 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 da, or the silhouette of Rick Astley. That's all we have for Michael Afton. Or Henry Emily, a character who in game we have no confirmed images of, outside of a scratched out picture from Into the Pit, and I think that version that you can kind of see Henry is in the files, not even in the final game. So, yeah, official visuals of these guys would be super cool. Super cool, actually. Not to mention, when a character is added to Dead by Daylight, they have a little bit of lore as to why they are there. But part of that could also be additional lore for these characters. What were they up to? Was this during FNAF 3? If it happened, if this is FNAF 3 Springtrap and Michael Afton, not only will we get official renders of these characters, but Dead by Daylight likes to set up a scene for when they characters are taken, which means we would get official lore about what was going on at FNAF 3, which, like, we're pretty sure it was William Afton recognizing Michael Afton and Michael Afton recognizing William Afton, so he's like, oh, I need to burn this place down. Like, we're pretty sure that's what happened, but it'd be nice if we had confirmation. A year would be crazy. If we got a year for FNAF 3 and all of this, that would be insane. So, like, I'm not saying that the Dead by Daylight chapter is going to be mind-blowing for FNAF, but it's definitely, I think, at least going to be meaningful, and hopefully it could be huge. Like, there's a big possibility for this Dead by Daylight chapter to be huge for the lore. Or it's a nothing burger, but it's at least cool. Now, I said there was 3 things. Now, we don't have a release date for this third thing, but I'm hopeful it's sometime this year, and I'm even more hopeful it's during the summer. Can't forget about 5 Laps at Freddy's, baby. I am so excited for 5 Laps at Freddy's. It will be my most played FNAF game. It's a kart racer. I love kart racers. But there's not really a lot to talk about lore-wise for it, so I kind of just want to devote this section of the podcast to my wish list for 5 Laps at Freddy's. Number 1 of the list. If we don't add this, the game will die in a week. You need to add this. Click Team, if you're listening, you need to add this. I don't care if you need to ask Scott Cawthon for more money. Online racing. At least peer-to-peer. Like, at least some kind of peer-to-peer racing. If I cannot play 5 Laps at Freddy's with my friends online, this game will die in a week. Guaranteed. I'll still play it, but the player count will dwindle immediately. But if it's online, you've pretty much created an infinite game, because people will be playing it together for a long time and modding it even longer. I guarantee you. Number 2, obviously, more characters. And I think we're on lock to get more characters. I feel like Roxy makes the most sense here. It'd be crazy if we get a full racing game for FNAF and it doesn't have the character known for go-kart racing. That being said, if Roxy's going to be added, probably all the Glam Rocks. But then, like, when does it stop? Like, when does it become too much? But I don't know. I hope at least Roxy. Maybe also, if I had to pick another character that's not Roxy from the Security Breach era, I kind of would want Vanny. I think that'd be really fun. And I know I emphasize how important online play is for it. Some sort of single-player experience would also be pretty much necessary. More so than what we have, right? In the demo, it's just there's 3 races, and you can do time trial. You can race, and it'll record your fastest time. I think to be a competent kart racer, especially if this is going to be a paid-for game, which I assume it will be, you need, like, the Grand Prix versus and time trial. You need those 3 modes. Kind of a necessity. Grand Prix, you've got your 3 to 4 cups of 4 races each about, or if you want to be crazy with it, 5 cups of 5 races each. I mean, 5 Laps at Freddy's, right? That it was like 25 courses. That's crazy. You can just do 16 courses and get away with 4 cups of 4 courses. No one will feel left out. And that way you have that like kind of single player experience, and also time trials, a way to play that course without computers just to practice the course. Both of these huge modes that are very important to have to be a competent kart racer. And yeah, as far as like more courses, I think 16 feels good. That is a lot of locations, but the fact that like in the demo, we've got Midnight Motorist, a representation of the basement of Security Breach, and the hills, Fazbear Hills from FNAF World, they are obviously pulling from a lot of locations. I think getting 16 locations is not going to be a struggle when we already have such interesting niche locations already. And I still think, and look, you can take this idea free of charge, I still think the best course you could add, and look, you can take this idea free of charge, I still think the best course you could add is the West Arcade from Security Breach, specifically using the tunnels that DJ Music Man crawls through. I think that'd be peak. Jeez, that's not a lot of time on this podcast. I might grab extra questions because it's kind of all I prepared. I thought I'd rant for a lot longer, but I did realize that like I've already talked about Secret of the Mimic and I think FNAF on the podcast before, so what are you gonna do? But yeah, this is all coming out. I mean, the first two are definitely coming out in June. Hopefully FNAF is sometime this summer. Regardless, huge summer for FNAF. Super excited. Thank God we're kind of in a content drought right now. But we're going to move on to questions, and we'll do that until we get to a good enough length of the podcast. I might have to grab some more. But I've grabbed 4. But if you want your questions answered on the podcast, feel free to send them into Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That is in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. And don't forget, I should probably do this every podcast. I haven't for a while. We're partnered with gamersupps. Don't forget to get yourself some gamersupps with code RyeToast for 10% off your entire order. It's legitimately very good. I highly recommend the BBL flavor, blueberry lemonade, or bowberry, just straight blueberry. They got a good blueberry flavor, man. Comes in caffeine and non-caffeine variants. I'm drinking a caffeine one right now because I'm tired. Our first question comes from Incompetent Gentleman, he, him. So Gregory is definitely not a robot, but I think Return to the Pit was showing another example of Nexie, except instead of Nexie, it was an Eleanor doll, but Eleanor is baby-like. I think the point was to draw that connection. Before I lose you, Gregory's not a robot. There were multiple Buddytronics. Now this theory is about Buddytronics. I kind of cut out the beginning to focus on the theory itself. Buddytronics, if you don't know, are from Nexie. We'll get into them. I think one of them was probably Baby, but I think they were discontinued by the time of Security Breach. That's why Gregory implies that the doll should not be there. However, I think that the dolls were the Mimic's method of luring in children to the Pizzaplex after hours so he could kill them. But after the Mimic was trapped behind the wall and the Buddytronics were discontinued, Vanny stepped in and her method was using Gregory. Basically, Gregory is the replacement method for luring in kids for the new killer. The Mimic used other robots. Vanessa uses another AI-controlled human. Thank you for your question, Incompetent Gentleman. So yeah, there's a couple things we have to go over here. First of all, what the hell is a Buddytronic? In the story Nexie, it's basically Ron's Gone Wrong, if you saw that movie, but it's one of the Tales in the Pizzaplex stories where they are Buddytronics, and it's something that pops up every now and then in other stories, but basically Fazbear at the Pizzaplex is selling these plush toys that are mini animatronics. I think they're like 2 to 3 feet tall, and they kind of follow you around, and they're like smart, and they obviously have some kind of AI in them. You can talk to them, and like the Fazbear AI, right? And in Nexie, there's a weird glitch when they create Nexie, the doll that our main character has, and it seems like the Mimic's AI gets inputted in there, and it's a whole thing. But Incompetent Gentleman raises an interesting connection here. This theory is attempting to explain the weird circus baby dolls throughout the Pizzaplex. First of all, there's a whole basement of them in the utility tunnels. But Ruin, there's that room where they're giggling and they disappear when you're not looking at them. Gregory and Cassie are like, why are you here in different points of the game? There's something strange about them. The idea that these plush babies are Buddytronics is probably the best explanation I've ever heard for them to exist. And I wouldn't say that's because it's an amazing explanation. It has a lot of flaws that we should go over. But it is an explanation, and frankly there aren't a lot of those for why the hell they exist and why they work like that. So the idea that they're mini animatronics like we see in the books does explain that in a way. I think the problem is the timeline here. it seems that the Mimic was trapped down there for a while, and while Gregory and Vanessa likely added that cement and got him into that contained room, I don't think the Mimic was operating on its own free will on the Pizzaplex until Vanny gets down there, and Glitchtrap is able to influence the Pizzaplex more so. That being said, the Plushbabies being a sort of Buddytronic does explain their erratic behavior, especially when you consider that wouldn't even be the only small animatronic in these games. Think about the mini music men in the vents. They are also tiny little animatronics that get up into trouble. So the idea of the circus babies being an extension of that, I think has merit, especially with that weird workshop in the utility tunnels. As far as them being the method of luring kids for the Mimic, I don't think the timeline works here, because I don't think kids were being lured and killed at the Pizzaplex until Vanny gets there. And when Vanny gets there, Gregory is an option. So, like I said, the Buddytronics being a luring method, I don't super buy. The circus baby dolls being Buddytronics, I think is a really good explanation for their weird behavior. So, I like half of that. Thank you for your suggestion. I think it is very helpful. Our next one comes from Funtime Von Fox 66, they them. Is there a way to make a FNAF villain that is fully separate from William Afton? And if so, how could they be integrated into the series? It's an interesting question, right? Because the question also boils down to, what do you mean by fully separate? Would a copycat killer be fully separate? Someone who heard about like William Afton and what he did and thinks he was right and is trying to recreate those, but isn't directly connected to William Afton? That's a possibility, but that's not fully separate. I've been an advocate for a long time that I think FNAF's healthiest option moving forward is making some sort of an anthology series. Instead of being the Five Nights at Freddy's brand, being the Five Nights brand, the Five Nights franchise. And essentially, once this main story with the Mimic is over, just doing other Five Nights games. Honestly, I don't know the legality of this. I don't know what the proper payment for this would be. I think if Scott really wanted to make an infinite money glitch, you already have such a talented community passionately making fan games. And Fanverse, I think, is making really impressive stuff, but the business model was weird, I feel. But an expanded version of Fanverse might be the healthiest option for the FNAF franchise. The idea of like really impressive fan game, reach out to the dev, be like, hey, if I toss you some money, can you make an upgraded version of this? And I get a percentage of your sales, and we'll make merch that I get a percentage of. I think that's the best way to go about it. What I'm trying to get at is I think the healthiest way to continue making these games is to make new stories based around similar concepts. Like, it doesn't always have to be somebody killed kids and they possessed animatronic suits. But horror about surviving against animatronics is vague enough that you could make an anthology series about it. That being said, that's probably really the only way to fully separate it from William, unless William turns into a cog in the machine. And that kind of goes on to a crackpot theory I have about Secret of the Mimic. Looking at Edwin's, Murray's costume manor, the painted glass that we see on that mansion in the Help Wanted 2 update has this, caravan with masks about it, like a Bonnie and a Freddy mask, like a Fredbear and a Bonnie mask, which is a weird combination. And Sun and Moon are also referenced. And the whole building is like, oh, we sell masks. And masks have always been important. I wonder if part of the lore that they're going to be establishing is that even before Fredbear's Family Diner and before whatever Secret of the Mimic is going to be, there was this traveling caravan that used masks and did horrific sacrifices of people to chase eternal life or something. And that seeps into William somehow, and that's where he starts to get this idea in the first place. And that's when FNAF starts. It's kind of like a modernization of this ancient people. If that's where they're going with it, which, I have no evidence for this besides the tarot cards of Mystic Hippo and the stained glass of the manor. But if that's where they're going with this, that's super interesting, and there's a lot they could do with that. And then you can continue using Freddy because it's less about like, oh, William Afton is trying to do something, and more about these characters themselves have a spirit to them that will corrupt someone. Then you can start also divvying away from William. But that's also a super out there theory that's probably not true. But those are my thoughts on it. Thank you for your question. Our next question comes from B, she, he, they. I was thinking of the Funtime set and how they match up with the Afton family. Baby is Elizabeth, Foxy for the big brother, Freddy is the crying child, and Ballora is the mom. What about Funtime Chica? We know she exists because of the files talking about her being at her own restaurant, and we see her in Pizza Sim. Who is she meant to represent? I like to think it might be an affair child, as she's left on her own separate from the rest. How about you? I was thinking about this for a while. Because, like, the joke answer is, yeah, that's William's persona. But I think there is a real answer here, and I think it goes into the early stages of the Fazbear Company. I wonder if, when making the Funtimes, Funtime Chica was a concession to the shareholders, because we know for a fact more than any other business in this franchise, the Afton Robotics franchise is backed by shareholders, because we have that interview at the beginning of Sister Location where he's like explaining Circus Baby's features. So in making Circus Baby Pizza World and making it with Circus Baby and Ballora and Funtime Foxy and Funtime Freddy, I wonder if part of it was the shareholders being like, you need to connect this a little bit more with established IP. Can you add Chica? Right, because with the Funtimes, we have Funtime Freddy and Bonbon and Funtime Foxy. We have Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy. We're missing that fourth major IP character in Chica. So I wonder if William's vision was his family. And that's where we get Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, Ballora, and Circus Baby. That's his vision. And he approaches the shareholders, and the shareholders are like, we like it, but can you add Funtime Chica just so it's better connected to the franchise? And he's like, but it's a separate thing. He's like, we don't care. Better connect it with established IP, and we'll greenlight it. So that's my guess. And it's kind of a lame answer. Like, I like yours better because it's more interesting. But as far as like the evidence we have in front of us, it seems like Funtime Chica was more of a business move, and it feels like something that he had to do rather than the passion of the rest of the Funtimes. Especially because like Funtime Chica looks really bad and doesn't fit in with the rest of the Funtimes at all. So it feels like he begrudgingly made Funtime Chica, whereas the other ones he made with a purpose. But maybe I'm also looking too much into it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for your question. And finally from Bolash, they, them, what is your favorite moment in the week before or from any of the other FNAF interactive novels? It's tough. It's probably the week before, right? Like, I know you said or any of the other interactive novels, but the week before I think is far and away my favorite of them. I really, really like the week before and Ralph as a character. As far as my favorite moment from the week before, that does get tricky. I think it would have to go to some of the comedic moments, right? Because the week before is strong with its emotional core, and it makes you really care about Ralph and his connection to his daughter and that he survives. But the week before is also like pretty funny, which I don't think it gets a lot of credit for. Like, there's a lot of moments that are just actually very funny. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know for a fact at some point you're like about to get killed by Chica or Bonnie or somebody, and you're like, I can't believe this is happening. And then like another animatronic pops out of nowhere and he's like, really? And that animatronic kills him. Like, that's kind of funny. You know, like there are these macabre comedy bits in here, which is really part of it is like, one, it's fun that it's funny, but two, it harkens to a lot of comedy horror, or the idea that horror and comedy are so closely intertwined. They are both adrenaline-based subjective mediums. And I love that connection. And that's a connection that gets explored a lot in a lot of movies. A lot of movies are all in on the whole idea of combining horror and comedy, or even non-horror comedies have their comedic moments. And there's moments that like make you laugh, that make the scares more justified and more intense. And part of that, I think, is in the week before. And I think that's its strength. I'm looking at the time. This is a really short podcast, but I'm really tired and I've had a hell of a weekend I don't want to get into until everything is settled. So I think we're just going to call it there. So once again, if you want your questions answered on the podcast, feel free to send them into Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. But until next time, as always, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.